Let's jump right into today's tale. Looking back, I guess I should have seen the signs. My wife was hanging out a lot with her friend Audrey, and it bugged me. Audrey was recently divorced, and as far as I could tell, she lived a pretty wild lifestyle. She seemed to switch boyfriends more often than some people change socks. I couldn't keep up, and frankly, I didn't want to. I never liked her, but I should have interfered with Linda's friendships. I don't know if I should have or not. All I know is that Audrey convinced my wife to tear my heart to shreds. Linda and I had been married for 17 years. We had 2 kids, our daughter Tanya, 15, and our son Clay, 13. We were a typical suburban family. Linda worked at a doctor's office, and I did pretty well selling computer software. We had a nice house, 2 good cars, and a seemingly solid family life. That's what I thought, at least, when I got home one Friday evening and I came home to find Linda and Audrey sitting at the kitchen table. Audrey had her usual smug expression, but Linda looked pale and uneasy. I could tell something serious was going on. "Hey, sweetheart," Linda said, standing up to give me a kiss. "Hey, honey," I replied, setting down my briefcase and wrapping my arms around my wife. After the kiss, I turned to Audrey and greeted her too. "I'm going to run upstairs and change," I said, reaching for my bag. "Okay, dear," she replied. "You like some coffee?" Linda asked, her voice wavering. "Audrey, I need to talk to you when you come back." "What is it?" I asked, deciding to get it over with. "Why don't you change first, honey? I'll get your coffee, and we can talk once you're back," she suggested nervously. I stared into her eyes, trying to read her expression. She was clearly scared. I felt a chill go through me as I caught Audrey smirking. Whatever they were planning, I knew I wouldn't like it. My mind raced as I trudged as I walked up the stairs. I imagined all kinds of scenarios, but nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. I'd only been gone a few minutes, changing from my suit to some casual pants and a polo shirt, when I returned to the kitchen. My coffee was already set at my usual spot. Audrey was whispering something to Linda, looking as if she was coaching her on what to say. They didn't notice me until I sat down. I took a sip of my coffee and looked at them intently. "What's going on?" I asked. Linda was a bit hesitant, looking at Audrey, who gave her a little nudge and said, "Go on, he loves you, he'll understand." Audrey encouraged her, and Linda dropped her gaze, unable to meet my eyes. "Honey, I love you so much," she said. "So please don't take this the wrong way, but I want to go on a few dates with Audrey." I was taken aback. I had no idea what she meant by dates. Whatever it was, my answer was going to be a hard no. I had to clarify. "What do you mean by dates? Are we talking about sleeping with other men?" I asked cautiously. My wife was at a loss for words, so Audrey stepped in. "It doesn't mean she doesn't love you, Robert," she said. I was tempted to tell her I wasn't talking to her, but curiosity kept me quiet. I knew this wasn't Linda's idea. It had Audrey's fingerprints all over it, and I needed to understand how she convinced my wife to go along with it. "It's just sex," Audrey said. She told me that, aside from me, she's only been with one other guy in her entire life. "That's ridiculous, Robert," she said. "I bet she's slept with more women than that. She deserves to have some fun." I turned back to Linda. "So sex with me isn't fun?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Linda finally met my gaze. I tried to mask my hurt, but I'm sure I failed miserably. "I didn't say that," Audrey interrupted again, waving Linda off. "Men and women approach sex differently. It's just variety. Plenty of men let their wives go out and have fun. It doesn't mean anything. Robert, it's just sex. Linda and I talked, and we agreed that you could have a little fun on the side too if you want." I shifted my gaze back to Linda. I wasn't sure if I saw fear or regret in her eyes, but it seemed like she was starting to realize this was a huge mistake. "I see," I replied flatly. I could feel the tears welling up, but fought to hold them back. "Audrey, could you hang around for a bit?" "I'd love to." She smirked. She probably thought she'd won. Where are you going, Linda? She asked softly. It was the first time she'd spoken since her initial statement. I'll be right back, I said calmly, not answering her question. I went into my home office and locked the door. Ever since I was a kid, I've dealt with things head on. I'm not saying I don't know how to have a good time. I love a good party and have a great sense of humor, but when it comes to serious matters, I prefer to address them directly. I pushed back the tears as I sat down at my computer and started typing. This is my reaction to Linda's proposition, dear Linda. I never expected I'm really hurt by what you've done. I love you and I've loved you for so many years. But when you told me about your desire to have sex outside of our marriage, I was devastated. I understand that your friend Audrey is behind it, but your willingness to go along with her plan has already harmed our relationship and marriage. I just want to be completely clear about my view on your deliberate infidelity. I absolutely believe that any sexual relationship with a man or woman is a betrayal and a breach of our wedding vows are clear on sexual contact. This includes oral or physical stimulation in a sexual manner, whether given or received. If you don't agree with me on this subject and go ahead with your affair, this is what will happen on Monday morning. I will file for divorce. I will tell our parents and everyone we know about our divorce and explain why I took this step. I will also speak to the children and explain why we are divorcing, for until our divorce is official, I'll do whatever it takes to find out who you're seeing. If they're married, I'll let their spouses know. I'll show no pity or sympathy for them or their family. Make sure they understand this before putting themselves and their family at risk. 5. Once the divorce proceedings have begun, there will be no turning back. We'll always be connected via our children, but I'll cut all emotional links with you and begin rebuilding my life without you in it, my love. You have a decision to make. The above are the effects should you follow through on your threat to have sex with other guys. However, if you decide to stay in this marriage, there will be constraints, as I previously indicated. Admitting your intentions to engage in extramarital sex have devastated me more than I ever imagined. At this time, I'm not sure whether I can forgive you or if the harm to our marriage can be mended, but I'm prepared to try. If you agree to my terms, they are: 1. You must break all links with Audrey. You are not to contact her again for any reason. 2. You must move your possessions to the spare bedroom and sleep there. 3. You must schedule an appointment with your doctor to be tested for sexually transmitted illnesses. 4. You must consent to installing. I'll be using a GPS in your car regularly, and I'll be contacting your doctor to ask about your STI status. I'll be monitoring your location without any negative attitude. I'll accept marriage therapy if you agree to my requests. I'll do my best to forgive you, but re-establishing trust will take time and patience. You need to decide what you want to do. I hope you make sensible decisions, even though they'll be painful. I've included these people in the copy: Audrey Simpson, Daryl Hoskins, and Bryce Anderson. Mr. John Coulter is a lawyer. I could hear Linda and Audrey chatting as I finished up. I knew they'd gone from the kitchen to the couch in the living room. I hoped I could hear what they were saying, but it didn't really matter. I'd made my mind up and there'd be no talking. I used mail merge to address an envelope and send a copy of the letter to my parents, Linda's parents, and our family lawyer. I packed and sealed each envelope and stamped them. I then created 2 more copies for the co. When I left my office, I heard 2 people I knew as conspirators turn to look at me. I said, "I'll be right back," and went to the front door. I had something for the mailbox. My wife asked, "What's in the mailbox?" Before I could finish my thought, I left anyway. I went to the corner and sent the 3 copies of my deposition a few minutes later. I was back before she could ask me anything else. I went over to the 2 women sitting on my couch. I gave them each a copy of my statement. "What is this?" Linda asked. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" "Yes, I have. I think you have my ideas on the matter in your hands. I wanted to set things out in black and white to avoid any misunderstandings." They both tentatively started unfolding their papers. I paid close attention to Linda's expression as she read. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. "You bastard, Audrey yelled. "What kind of jerk are you? Come on, Linda, she urged, holding my wife's hand. Shut up, my wife shouted, yanking her hand away from Audrey's hold. He's my husband, and I love him. Nobody, not even you, will call him names in my presence. Audrey's shocked expression was priceless. My wife continued, I want you out of my home and my life. I never want to see or hear from you again. Linda stood and lifted Audrey, grabbed her by the arm, and said goodbye as she led her former colleague to the door. I mean it. I listened to you, and now my marriage is in jeopardy. Stay away from me. Those were her final words before slamming the door in Audrey's face. She turned toward me, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Yes, I agree to your requests and everything else you say. I promise you, Robert. I have not done anything wrong. I'd be happy to be tested for sexually transmitted infections. Please assure me that you will ultimately. I'm sorry. I know it'll take time, but I love you. I don't want a divorce. I can't imagine my life without you. I said I'd try, Linda. I can't promise more than that right now, except one thing. If I find you trying to satisfy your curiosity by just standing in the same room as a nude individual, it's over. She said regretfully. I know it'll take time to convince you, but I don't want to be with anyone other than you. I understand now. I never actually did that night. I helped her move her clothes to the other bedroom. We told the kids we'd had a disagreement and were sleeping in separate rooms until we'd calmed down. They were a bit skeptical, but they went along with our story. The next day, I went out and bought a GPS for Linda's car without her knowing. I also bought a recorder for the phones. It was a pretty simple little gadget. You just plugged it into any phone socket when a call was made or received from any phone in the house. It captured all sides of the argument when the connection was severed. The recording stopped. I installed it in my workplace and put the unit under a file cabinet just in case. On Sunday, I installed the GPS in Linda's car and downloaded the program to my laptop. I was hopeful but not certain about our future together. Linda's employment required her to work just 4 days a week. She had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. I kept an eye on the GPS signal all day at work. On Monday, she went to the grocery shop at 10. Other than that, the car never left the driveway. I was still a bit nervous and eager to check the phone tap when I got home that night. The kids were doing their homework at the kitchen table while Linda was preparing dinner. Hello, she said, softly kissing me on the cheek. I could see disappointment in her eyes. Can we talk later tonight, when the kids are in bed? She asked. My heart started beating fast. Yeah, I said, feeling anxious after supper. I spent some time with the kids before announcing that I had some work to do. I had a lot on my plate, so I went to my office and closed the door behind me. I connected a set of headphones to the recorder to ensure that no one else could hear it. I listened to the first call. It was from Audrey. She said hello, and my wife answered. The second call rang, and it was from Audrey. She asked if he was at work and if I could speak to him. I was a bit unclear about the other day, and I didn't want to talk to her. You're not my friend anymore, Linda. I want you to understand that. Audrey, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I never wanted to damage your marriage. I don't care what Robert said in his letter. I'm not going to risk making a mistake. If you ever contact me again, I will inform everyone that you. I think she was trying to undermine my marriage. I mean it. I never want to talk to you again like that. The call went dead. My heart began pounding again. Perhaps there is an opportunity for us. I assumed the next call was from her parents. Wow, did she receive it from them? Hello, Linda? She sighed as she said. I heard. I guess she assumed it was Audrey again. Linda, I recently received an odd letter from Robert. What's this all about? Oh, hello, Mom. Yes, I made a big mistake. Did you actually tell Robert that you were planning to have an affair? Well, it wasn't exactly an affair. Do you know my friend Audrey? A trembling voice. What's wrong with you? Is this how you were raised to cheat on your husband? How could you possibly conceive of such a thing? I'm embarrassed of you. We're both embarrassed of you, Linda. She tried to respond, but she was sniveling. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I apologize for hurting you and your mother. I have surely hurt Robert. I'm so sorry. I could hear her. Her father heard her weeping louder, and it seemed to calm him down a little when he spoke again. His voice was slightly calmer. I don't know what got into you, girl. I sure as heck hope you informed him you would follow those rules. I'm going to get tested for STIs at an out-of-town clinic. I'd feel too humiliated to do it at work, but I'm going to go to the clinic anyway. I'm also going to be the best wife a man could have. I know I'm lucky to have a second chance. I'm not going to mess it up. They carried on talking for a bit longer, then her mom picked up the phone again. By the end of the call, all three were in tears. Linda made the most insightful call to my mother. Hello, Mom. Hello, honey. It's great to hear from you. How are things going? Oh, you haven't received Robert's letter yet? Letter number 2? Everything okay? My mom inquired. Linda wanted to respond. What is it? What is wrong? Are the children fine? Has anything happened to Robert? Your mom sounded pretty panicked. I'm sorry to hear that. The children are okay, Robert is fine. I did something pretty stupid, and it's hurt our marriage. Robert has threatened to divorce me. There's also divorce. What have you done? My mom asked. I told her that I wanted to date other men. She told my mom. Why would you say something like that? I don't know. Mom, I know it was a mistake. I let a friend influence me. She's unmarried and often dates other men. She has lots of stories about having sex with them. She says no two men do it the same way. Some are better than others, but everyone is unique. She made it seem like I was always missing out on so much pleasure. She kept pushing me to get out there and see. She told me about all the different guys she knew and said she could set me up with as many as I wanted. We could go on double dates. She just kept going on and on. After a while, I started listening to her. Linda, are you married? She said she was single, which was a big difference. My mother answered. I know, but she introduced me to a friend of hers who is married. Her name was Betty. Said her husband was fine with her going out with other guys. She said he loved her very much and wanted her to have fun. After all, it was only sex. They tried to convince me that Robert would be the same because he loved me inside. I knew he'd never go for it, but I sort of followed their lead. I never considered how much it would hurt him. I knew it would hurt him. My mother's anguish was evident in her voice. Oh, Linda, how could you? She sobbed. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry, Linda. What happened? Did he abandon you? No, he didn't abandon me. He issued me an ultimatum. I dumped the girlfriend who had persuaded me into it. And I'm not sleeping with anybody else or getting divorced. We are also. He's planning to see a marriage counselor. He sent us a letter outlining the issue, which went to my parents, you and your dad, Anderson, and our attorney. My parents had already received it, but I thought it would take another day to reach you. My mother was crying, and you could hear it. Linda, I'm not sure what to say. I never imagined you could be that harsh. I really hope Robert loves you as much as I think he does. If I'd done that to Bryce, I'd be out of a job in a heartbeat. I know, Mom. Linda started weeping again. I promised I'd never hurt him again. I came close to losing him, but I'm going to show him how sorry I am every day for the rest of my life. Please forgive me. Listening to both of them weep made my eyes water up around 10. That night, we made sure the kids were in bed before sitting down on the couch to speak. I still didn't know the full details of our situation, but I could see tears forming in Linda's eyes as she started. I spoke to our parents today. Mom and Dad received your letter, kid. She replied with a strained chuckle. Dad let me have it. Actually, she marked on second thought. Everyone pretty much let me have it. Your parents, I hadn't received the letter yet, but I'm sure they will tomorrow, so I called to help cushion the blow. It's a shame I didn't think to do that for my own family. Everyone is really upset and disappointed with me. Why shouldn't they be? I am disappointed in myself. I simply wanted to convey how sorry I am. She wiped the tears from her eyes and proceeded, Don't be furious, but I have something to tell you. Audrey made a call. I suppose. She thought I was joking when I said we weren't friends anymore. Anyway, I told her again that if she called me again, I'd tell everyone how she tried to ruin my marriage. She doesn't have many female friends, and I doubt she's ready to risk losing the few she does, so I doubt I'll hear from her again. I was happy she told me about the calls. Even though I already knew about them, I held her hand, smiled and thanked her for being open with me. Linda came back the next week for sexually transmitted infection testing. To be honest, I never really thought she cheated on me. If she had, Audrey would have told me. She'd probably have rubbed my nose in it. She'd have spilled the beans, probably. I know HIV can stay in your body for years before it causes symptoms. All the other tests came back negative, so after 3 months later, I finally let Linda back into our bed. Our sex life was a bit rocky at first, but Linda was determined to rekindle our relationship. She was really eager to please, and I think our intimacy is better now than it ever was. We also had some marriage counseling sessions, which were helpful. Audrey and her partner did a great job with my wife. Our therapist made her repeat every discussion over and over, and even Betty's husband got involved. She said that he did his best to persuade her that he was willing to let his wife have an affair because he loved her so much. He told Linda that any guy who genuinely loved his wife should be able to overcome his jealousy in order to make her happy. I think he was trying to get into her pants. I'm going to have to face him eventually, and thank him for helping to win my wife over. Between the three of them, they were pretty convincing. It's been over a year since that day and I haven't had any reason to suspect Linda since then, but I still use the GPS to track her travels and I check her phone calls now and then. Once you've established a lack of trust, it's hard to get rid of it. Next month we'll be celebrating her parents' 50th wedding anniversary, looking back on everything we've been through and where we are now. I'm convinced that in 31 years and 3 months we'll be doing the same. That's the end of the story.